pose is the potato sack pose. This is where the baby is wrapped quite sort of firmly in a nice secure pose and then positioned upright on the posing bag. There's a few things to be careful of with this pose. When I say wrap firmly, if you wrap too tightly, what's going to happen is you're going to put pressure on those ribs. You can even restrict the airways. So we want to make sure that he's very, very comfortable throughout this position. We also want to make sure that his little legs are tucked up in a seated position so that when he is upright, the weight of his body is not going to come down and put pressure on his little feet or legs. So I use a couple of long stretchy wraps. I start at one end and I work my way around the baby. I do it then with a second wrap, and then I'll use a different type of wrap that's got some nice texture to finish it off before we position him upright. Another thing to be careful of is that you don't want the temperature of the room to be too high when you are wrapping them, especially when you're putting multiple wraps around them, because they can overheat quite quickly. And babies can't regulate the body temperature, so we want to make sure that they're nice and comfortable. So I've turned the temperature down. At the moment it's about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. This is a great setup to also do with babies who are slightly awake and sort of stirring. I usually find that wrapping them makes them a little sleepier and a little bit more content. So positioning those legs up nice and high in that flat position, and then with the hands we want to position those in underneath the chin. So just holding those in place with one hand, you can bring the wrap across. Now I'm not starting too high with the wrap, because if I do, I'm going to end up with a lot of wrap around that neck and shoulders, which is going to make it quite bulky. Okay, the first time around is always the important one, with getting toes and fingers and arms and legs all in place. I'm just going to tuck that down there and then bring the bottom up. Bring that foot down. Now bring the second elbow across. Bring that wrap over. Now I do this on my legs because obviously I can use my body to keep the feet in place and to prevent them from coming down underneath that bottom while I wrap. Makes it nice and easy. But if you don't have long legs, you can just sit down on the floor, stretch your legs out and put some towels underneath your knees, and that's also a great way to do it. So what I'm going to do now as I come around is come up towards this shoulder. And as I come across that shoulder, I'm now going to start to crisscross across the body. So as I come across this way, towards the bottom and the hip, I'm then going to come around the lower half and come up that way. Now when you're positioning the baby on the posing bag in this potato sack pose, it's really important that the baby is supported throughout the entire setup. They can move at any time. Their little heads can jerk back and they can lose their balance if they're not supported. They can injure their necks. But also, we have to remember how uncomfortable we can make parents feel if their baby is not supported properly. I always ask parents when I'm teaching workshops and things like that in front of students, how would it make you feel if I let go of your baby right now? And all of them answer with the same response, horrified. So even if you think that your baby is nice and secure on the posing bag, you do not want your clients to walk away having felt uncomfortable with the experience, because they are your best form of marketing and advertising. So you can see he's nice and comfortable. His wrists are in, but we're going to turn those out once we've got the second wrap on. Okay, coming around the back. Removing an arm in Photoshop does not take long, and I'd rather do that than risk the safety of a baby or one feel uncomfortable. You can do it as a composite and put two photos together, but for me I find it nice and quick just to remove one arm in Photoshop that's supporting the baby. So we went down, across and around the back. Now we're going to come up. Just going to turn this little wrist out. There we go. You can see I can still put my finger in under there and move that wrap, so there's plenty of room for him to have a wriggle and we're not putting too much pressure on him. When we have the ends left, what I do is just wrap them across the middle to sort of fill that gap between the knee and the elbow. Okay. Same with this wrap. I'm going to gather it up a little. Got a nice soft texture to it, so it photographs well. We're going to come up a little higher now above that shoulder. There we go. Coming across the body still. Around the bottom and up across the midsection again. And this side coming up towards that shoulder and neck. So it can take a little while, especially if you've got a baby that's wriggling and squirming, to get it just perfect. But what I like about this is I can get multiple setups out of the one wrap, keeping the baby nice and comfortable, secure, and not moving them too much. Okay, I'm going to come around the back. And then up again. Okay. Now, get these hands into position. I just put my hand at the back of the shoulders, got my fingers at the back of his neck there, and now I can just position his little hands. There's a cute smile. Shh, shh, shh. Underneath his chin, just when he relaxes. There's one. Now the reason for having the hands out is that when you position them upright, having the hands up allows them to rest their chin on it. If their hands were down, the head would just fall forward. There we go. I'll pop a bonnet on. Turn him around so you can see. And then he's supported upright on the posing bag. So when I'm positioning the baby in the posing bag, I want to make sure I've got a beautiful deep well here in the middle. I'm also going to use some supports around the baby underneath our big rug. And we're going to have our support person, assistant, sitting nice and close and making sure that they're comfortable. Because when you're supporting a baby, if you're not comfortable, your body's going to start aching, your hands can shake, and then the baby becomes more aware of it. So we want to make sure both the spotter and the baby are nice and comfortable at all times. So place his little bottom here in the middle of this well. I'm going to lean him backwards. Now, to bring your hand in, I want your hand and finger, these ones here, they're going to come around the base of his head, and then the hand is going to come across the back of his shoulders. But I want your hand to be nice and soft at the same time so that it's not too tense. Actually, I'm just going to turn him a little bit more towards that light, and then I'm going to turn his head back this way. There we go. So nice and low, just in here. And it's important that if you have a parent assisting you, you show them exactly what to do. This is a great way to get dads involved. Okay, bring your thumb down a little bit lower, that's it, and back just a little bit so it's not in my shot. Now I want you to bring your other hand across the front here, and this is going to support the front half. Now while I'm adjusting the baby from underneath with props, fixing up any other little details, he is nice and supported the whole time, and he's on a slight decline backwards there, so he's not going to tip forward. So you can use lots of different things to position under your flocati. Some people like to use bowls, things like that. For me, it's just something I can wrap around the front of him to create that little bit of support. So I start at one side, and I just slowly, just bring your hand a little higher on his tummy, that's it. Work my way around, tucking in nice and close to him. There we go. And just our fluff. Okay, just bring your hand away for a moment. And bring it back again. Beautiful. His head come back just a tad while I adjust his fingers. So making sure those fingers are nice and flat. He's very relaxed, turning his head and just resting it down here on his hand. Yeah, just try not to put your thumb near his mouth, because any baby with anything near their mouth, if they think it's food, okay. So when I shoot this, I'm still going to be coming down at a straight angle onto that nose. Okay, now I'm just going to adjust this. Just bring your hand out for me for a second. Okay, bring him this way, beautiful, and that head forward. That's it, he's fine. Okay, now fingers just on the front there, not squishing the ties or the flocati. Goes back a bit. Alright, now when I get my exposure, hands are going to be on him at all times, and then when I'm ready to take my shot, it's as simple as 1, 2, 3, hands, the front hand away, but keeping the back hand there. Okay, that's it. Just upright a little bit more. Put a little bit more pressure. That's it. Beautiful. Leaning forward just a little bit. That's it. And 1, 2, 3. Back again. So when I'm photographing a baby wrap like this and upright, I'm going to aim for the eye that's closest to the camera. I'm going to create some space. You can shoot it portrait if you want. For me, I like landscape. I'm going to come in as close as I can to get some detail shots as well. But now, while he's nice and comfortable there, what we can do is just lay him backwards. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay. So to add another image to my gallery, I'm going to shoot him from above. There we go. This is where you can get some nice detail shots and just start adding a little bit of variety to your gallery. So he's in the center of my frame. I'm coming down above that nose in a nice straight line, and then coming in and getting a nice close-up. Beautiful. When you're photographing white on a baby, you want to make sure that you are not overexposing the details. And to do that, sometimes you've got to bring the exposure down to adjust for the skin tones. Without losing detail in the white wrap or the white bonnet. So just be careful of your highlights, which is why I always have the histogram on the back of my camera on. And that's how I photograph the potato sack.